people quit retention before reaching the point where it becomes effortless. The first months test discipline, but what truly matters is what happens after a year. At that stage, energy no longer feels stored. It feels integrated. Retention stops being something you do and becomes something you are. The body begins to run on a different rhythm, where control feels natural, not forced. This is where the law of reverse effort activates. The harder you stop trying to keep energy, the easier it flows through you. Retention rewires you to live in that balance, where desire no longer drains, it directs. A year of holding creates a lifetime of power, because the system learns that peace produces more than struggle ever could. Weak energy always seeks escape. It burns itself through cravings, anxiety, and distraction, never realizing it's leaking the very strength it needs to feel whole. Retention exposes this weakness and reverses it. Section 1. Habit encoding. In the early stages of retention, progress depends on discipline. Every decision feels heavy because the mind still treats control as an effort. But over time, repetition begins to reshape the brain. The same circuits that once responded to temptation start firing for self-control instead. This is the point where willpower begins to turn into programming. Each moment of restraint writes a new pattern into the nervous system, teaching it that strength feels better than surrender. Retention stops being a battle between desire and discipline. It becomes a habit of alignment. The body starts to prefer stability over chaos because stability now feels natural. As these repetitions accumulate, reward begins to shift. The pleasure of instant gratification fades, replaced by the satisfaction of consistency. Each victory releases confidence instead of dopamine. The brain learns that control is its own form of reward, not in a loud, euphoric way, but through a quiet feeling of power that lingers long after. Retention trains the mind to associate self-respect with success. The man who holds his energy begins to enjoy the strength that comes from restraint more than the relief that comes from release. This is how identity starts changing, through small victories repeated until they redefine what satisfaction means. Once the behavior is encoded into your subconscious, relapse stops being a temptation. It becomes irrelevant. The body no longer craves the old cycle because it has learned a higher one. Retention becomes as automatic as breathing, a program that runs beneath thought. You no longer need to remind yourself who you are. The pattern itself keeps you aligned. This is mastery, when control ceases to feel like control and becomes nature. The man who reaches this stage doesn't suppress weakness. He forgets it existed. His energy flows upward, his purpose stays sharp, and his strength becomes effortless. Section 2. Identity lock-in. Beyond repetition lies embodiment. The practice stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like truth. Retention becomes part of your posture, your tone, your gaze. You no longer wake up wondering whether you will stay disciplined. The question no longer exists. The body has learned the rhythm of control, and the mind mirrors it. Energy no longer sits restless beneath the surface. It circulates with precision. You have become the thing you once practiced. Retention now walks with you, speaks through you, and radiates from you without a word. The man you once tried to become has become the baseline. This stage requires awareness in every internal dialogue. Every thought must agree with your standard. The mind that once negotiated now operates by command. You stop justifying weakness because weakness no longer feels like part of your identity. The moment a thought arises that contradicts your higher self, it dissolves. Boundaries are no longer rules, they are reflections of your frequency. Retention transforms into mental posture. How you think when no one is watching, how you hold yourself in silence, how you respond when tested. Each moment reinforces that you are the source of your own energy, not a slave to impulse. Once your identity locks in, the lifestyle sustains itself without force. Retention stops being a daily goal and becomes your natural state of being. The energy you hold no longer feels stored. It feels lived. Your mind stops oscillating between control and release because both have merged into balance. You carry the presence of someone whose power does not need proof. Effort turns into flow, and restraint turns into rhythm. This is when life begins reflecting your internal order. Opportunities align, people respond differently, and stillness becomes your anchor. You are no longer holding energy. You are energy refined into form. Section 3: Cognitive Reframing. A year of retention changes the way the mind frames control. It stops being a challenge that demands effort and starts becoming a perspective that defines you. Counting days keeps you trapped in measurement. Living the standard frees you from it. Once retention becomes part of your perception, the need for constant self-reminders fades. You no longer ask how long you can hold. You simply exist in the rhythm of holding. The focus moves from endurance to identity. When the mind stops chasing milestones, discipline transforms into instinct. This is the point where control no longer feels heavy. It feels effortless. Reframing dissolves the tension that makes restraint difficult. You stop seeing retention as abstinence and start recognizing it as preservation. The energy you protect becomes sacred because you feel its impact on every part of your life, from thought to presence. The mind understands that you're not depriving yourself of pleasure. You're maintaining clarity, precision, and authority. Each time you choose stillness over impulse, you're confirming who you are. Retention turns into a form of respect toward your own potential. This reframing replaces struggle with purpose, and purpose always outlasts resistance. When retention is viewed as alignment rather than restriction, the habit sustains itself naturally. The mind no longer needs to police behavior because the identity behind it is stable. You don't fight urges, they dissolve against the wall of your clarity. What once felt like control now feels like composure. The entire nervous system adjusts to this understanding, responding to peace instead of temptation. The practice becomes invisible, yet its results are visible everywhere. Retention ceases to be an act, it becomes atmosphere. The man who reframes control into clarity stops chasing power and starts radiating it.